Can we start the meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening. I'll open the meeting by turning it over to Dr. Conway. She's got some information to fill us in on for what she passed out in the revised budget book last year, or Monday.
Thank you very much. Oh, it's first. You're absolutely correct. You are correct. I'm sorry.
I was thinking,
I apologize. All right, no, that first one.
I've been corrected. We have community forum before Dr. Conway this evening. I was thinking it was at the end of the meeting. So I will open the floor for community forum. Is there anybody who wishes to address the board this evening? Please step forward and give your name and address for the record. And if you also sign in on that sheet, that would be great.
I'm Kim Boulette of 228 Union Street in Vernon. I have a daughter who's recently been, she's being evaluated for special education services. I have really no idea if you have enough in the budget for special education services. One of my questions to our school when we were doing the evaluations is there enough funding and resources in our school to address issues that our children have? And I was happy to hear that, yes, there are. I was really very happy to hear that there are teachers that will help her address the issues. And I would ask you to focus and concern on making sure that there are enough staff to identify issues. We've been working with speech and language pathologists and occupational therapists and psychologists and special education teachers to be able to address and identify some of the issues and learning disabilities that we're finding. And I think that as the curriculum gets stricter and as we're pushing children from one grade to the next, I just ask that you plan for that and make sure that there is enough funding to, as those children maybe start to fall behind, or if they've caught up, if they start to fall behind again, that there is enough money in the budget for special education services for children of all grades. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who wishes to speak this evening at community forum? Seeing no hands, I will close community forum and we'll move on, and now I'll turn it over to Dr. Conway.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hall. The board, you received the details in your budget on Monday. Most of you should have received that. If you have any difficulty with your binders, please let us know. Trish is an expert at this point. She's done it so many times. I have revised the presentation. I'm only going over the 4 slides that I revised. I'm not giving you a full presentation, but I would be certainly happy to do so as well. Mr. Picaro, one from Mayor, and Mr. Ward, please, as well. Mr. Kim? Thank you. I first draw your attention to page 5. The pages are numbered this time. Page 5 was a request to go back 8 years. This actually goes back 7 years. But Mr. Picaro, in the meantime, was able to create another document, which he put in front of you this evening, which does go back 8 years. It also includes medical, which I did not have, and the percent of the expenditure that the medical was that year. So So both of those pages together, mine is probably a little less fine-grained than the one from Mr. Picaro. So you have both of those, which was a request. Page 9 is the next change. In page 9, the board had asked for extended day for all students. I used the, not sure what time frame we were looking at, the 3 districts in the state that are using a grant to explore this right now. East Hartford is one, I think the other 2 are New Haven and New Britain. They're exploring this for 1 school, but for an hour after school, so that's what I used as my model was 1 hour. If you look, 1 hour per day is $18,911. 180 days, so taking out a couple of those, 182, brings that to $3,400,000, a 7.06% increase over the current year. That included salaries. I don't anticipate that the hit on, certainly not, there won't be one on furniture and supplies and things like that. This is really teacher-student time that I would be looking at. And so we were looking at salaries just for 5 groups. Most of the groups are not affected by that. We would still have custodians here, 12-month secretary. We would have people covering. So the only groups that I included were teachers, paraeducators, paraprofessionals, 10-month secretaries, nurses, and library personnel. Those were the groups that would need to stay that extra that wouldn't be covered by someone else. I also included, for your information, that is not in the budget, but it is just a point of information. You were looking to lengthen the school year in a different way, and you didn't comment on the proposal of the summer program, but if looking to lengthen the school year, 1 day, including transportation, and I do have the details of this, I didn't think it was necessary for the slide, is $143,000. So right now we have 182 student days. To go to 183 would be an additional 143 plus $1,000 and 184, etc. So that's just for your information and your discussion purposes. On page 10, right now we actually have 9 kindergarten classrooms. 7 of those teachers have a morning session and an afternoon session. 2 of those teachers only have a morning session. And so we would need to add a total of 7 kindergarten. That means that's not whole people. 2 of those are half people, a half to one and a half to another. But also point to art. When we were looking at this, the 3 schools that don't have extended day, which Northeast and Maple do right now, the 3 schools that don't, you have planning time in the middle of the day. And so if we're going to keep kids all day long, that eliminates that planning time between the 2 sessions. And so Mrs. Goldberg went through her staff, and she will be able to add actually 15 sections of art for, because there's 15 sections of kindergarten, for our kindergarten students, with only adding a 0.2 art teacher, which is really terrific. And that was, she truly looked deeply at her staff. They're both included in the 497 right there. We need 6 additional classrooms. Furniture, as I said, right now we have 9 classrooms, some of them all day, some of them only a half a day. So we would need 6 additional classrooms for $90,000. That would total 15 classrooms right now from the principals. We would be looking to go art and or music on a cart in 3 of those schools due to lack of space. But the other schools are fine. They have no problems at all with that. The other change, as I said, there were only 4 slides changed, is on page 12. And the numbers were not changed. I just wanted to be more explicit. Right in the middle, it says PD 360, and certainly that is the online video learning system for teachers that we are using all over the district and diving very deeply into. But we also, next year, will have to have some system to manage our teacher evaluation. We are going to go from approximately 360 evaluations to over 1,000 evaluations in 1 year. And the entire system is electronic through the state. They are expecting formulas in there, and they put out bids for things. So we have included that in that line item, and I neglected to put that explanation there, so I apologize for that. The Next paper I have for you This is so you don't have to go searching throughout the entire budget. This is the list of the changes between version 4 and version 5, which means there were 3 versions before you got it. So these are the list of changes and what accounts they are in. So you can notice that, just as an example, for the additional all-day kindergarten, there are 5 different sets of additions there. One is just a few teachers because we had put a few teachers in the version 4. So this finishes off that number of teachers, supplies and materials. We neglected to put in medical insurance, dental insurance, etc. So that has now been put in for all 7 additional teachers for kindergarten. There were a couple of corrections that were made right there about 2/3 of the way down, Mr. Griffin. Ms. Rushlow's salary indicated it was local and it should be funded, it is funded actually by a grant, by the Special Education IDEA grant. However, we have just discovered that another teacher who used to be paid by a grant was not imported into our budget, so we discovered this morning. And so even though I would like to take that out, we've got to add it back in because there was a teacher at Lake Street that was not included. The contingency, non-affiliated, last year we asked you to change the salaries of the technology, information technology people in the district to make them up, bring them up to market value. This is the 4 executive secretaries, well there were 3, we're asking for the 4th. We've had a retirement in a non-affiliated secretary and we're looking to make that person the HR executive secretary. So we've crafted a job description that we'll be bringing to you, and it's still under discussion, but that is in the contingency line item. That total $30,000 brings 4 positions, which would be the superintendent secretary, the assistant superintendent secretary, the budget and control person, and the HR secretary. Those are the 4 areas, and so that's all together. Those are all non-affiliated, so that's something that you make a determination on before we offer those contracts in the spring. There was an error, interscholastic uniforms, sports uniforms had been left out. I did ask Mr. Phelps to create a 5-year uniform replacement plan. We've been relying on the good graces of the booster clubs. Many sports don't have a booster club. And so we've been relying on them for more than just warm-ups and banquets and things like that, but for actual uniforms for their sports. That's our responsibility. And so I did ask Mr. Phelps to make sure he put that in the budget and to do a 5-year replacement plan. Extended day in the bottom, the .2 art teacher is for kindergarten, but we did put it in contingency because at that point there were too many line items to change to put .5 of a .2 position in all 5 elementary schools. And so the .2 art teacher and the longer day are in the contingency line item, which is the last item in your summary, your budget summary. Everyone had that, right? Okay. I will point out one of Mr. Piccaro's handouts. This is the year-to-date. It's not the one that you're used to. We will get you one of those, but our Crystal Reports was not working today, and so we do have one for you. This is directly out of Munis. It does contain the same information. It may not be quite as friendly as the one we get out of Crystal Reports, and so we will do that as soon as the system will allow us to get back in there, but this is the year-to-date as of today, the 16th.